Every winter, curious kids and daring adults make the exact same mistake. They bring their warm, wet tongue within inches of a freezing steel pole. To understand the danger, look at the anatomy of the tongue itself. It is a highly porous, spongy muscle, constantly bathed in a layer of warm saliva and liquid moisture. Waiting on the other side is a solid block of dense metal, sitting out in the winter air and radiating a temperature well below the freezing point of water. Then the warm flesh abruptly collides with the steel. What follows is a rapid, completely irreversible micromechanical trap. The liquid on the tongue instantly bonds the flesh to the cold surface, holding it captive. You might wonder why this reaction only happens with specific materials. You can lick a frozen wooden fence post or a plastic sled without getting stuck at all. The culprit is a physical property called thermal conductivity. This measures how quickly a material absorbs and pulls heat away from a warmer source. This split-screen diagram illustrates that difference. On the left, metal acts like a thermal sponge, rapidly pulling heat out of the warm object. On the right, the wood barely conducts any heat away at all. When your tongue hits the cold metal, your body tries to fight back. It immediately pumps warm blood up into the tiny vessels near the surface of the tongue to try and maintain a normal temperature. But as this diagram of a cross-section shows, it's a losing battle. The massive thermal drain into the metal completely overpowers the small amount of heat your slower blood vessels can deliver to the surface. Because the metal steals heat faster than your body can replace it, the local temperature on the surface of your tongue drops below freezing in a fraction of a second. It takes this specific extreme thermal mismatch to turn the tongue's own moisture into a weapon. With the heat gone, the focus shifts to the microscopic droplets of saliva sitting directly between the muscle and the metal. In a warm liquid state, water molecules move with chaotic kinetic energy, but as the temperature hits freezing, that kinetic movement abruptly slows down. This animation reveals the precise structural shift. The H2O molecules lose their energy, stop sliding past one another, and begin locking together into a rigid hexagonal lattice. This phase change triggers a chain reaction, multiplying outward to freeze the entire contact area in milliseconds. The biological liquid that normally protects your tongue has now fully converted into a solid, unyielding sheet of ice. Under a microscope, neither of these two surfaces are actually smooth. The steel is covered in microscopic, jagged peaks and valleys, and the tongue is deeply pitted with thousands of tiny bumps called papillae. As the liquid water freezes, it expands. It forces its way deep down into the porous cavities of the flesh, while simultaneously filling the jagged microscopic scratches of the metal. These deep connections form crystal bridges. They act as rigid microscopic pillars interwoven tightly into both the flesh and the steel. This physical interlocking eliminates any possibility of slipping. The ice acts as a micromechanical superglue, turning a momentary touch into a permanent bodily trap. If you panic and try to rip yourself free, the tissue of the tongue will tear before the ice gives way, because those crystal bridges are structurally stronger than soft biological flesh. You have to satisfy a single physical condition to escape safely. You must overpower the metal's thermal drain and entirely reverse the phase change. Pouring warm water over the contact point introduces a massive influx of heat energy. This raises the local temperature back above 32 degrees, melting the rigid crystal bridges back into a liquid. It is the invisible thermal imbalance that creates the ice trap. Restoring the heat is the only safe way to break the micromechanical bond and walk away with your tongue intact.